There was this back and forth going where some things where we were surprised to hear people could possibly believe that. And then we were surprised sometimes as to what we actually found, what was actually there.
So Orillia definitely has its secrets, many of which I don't think we'll ever fully know.
Yeah. And so we're missing pieces of that puzzle, and the only thing that's there are stories from people saying, I've heard my grandfather talking about this or that. Yeah. We only see part of the story. The rest is up to you.
When that first came up on social media, they're like, well, there's a bomb shelter under 25 Peter Street, across the road from St. James Church. And I'm like, there's no way. I've lived in this town my whole life. There's no way that there's a fallout shelter in this town. And, you know, in high school, we would have probably, if we knew that, it would have been our God-given mission to get in there. Like, we wouldn't have rested until we got in there. So I thought for sure that we wouldn't, that there's no way that it was there, but sure enough. Right, so the whole process has been like that. It's been we hear a rumor, we chase it down. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. And what was remarkable is some of the rumors were outlandish, and they turned out to be true. Because in a situation where there's a nuclear fallout, they would be almost dependent on radio and letter mail in order to continue communications with the government. And as much as Orillia was not a military target, it was certainly advancing quickly technologically. And it was certain, and the theory was that the bomb shelter connected to communication systems that we believe this actually had some ability to communicate either through paper or through radio, would become central. And places like Orillia at that point would become communication hubs for the government. And that was why bomb shelters, and we're pretty sure that there's sister bomb shelters to ours in other places in Canada, were set up as a alternative communication network.
There's an interesting story about the caretaker there. He always liked to have a flask on his hip.
Okay.
And he'd walk down the street to the liquor store almost daily, pick up a Mickey, and then he'd take a couple of swigs, and there was 100 beds in the basement, and he'd hide it under a mattress. Well, when he'd long passed away, and they cleaned the beds out, they found about 40 Mickeys, because he wouldn't remember which mattress it was that he hid his bottle under.
So he'd go buy another Mickey and put it under. That's fantastic. There's pictures of this pool being swam in by people waiting to go off to World War I. And this was the sought-after location because it had a swimming pool. So they'd come here, swim in this pool, stay in Orillia, and then ship out.
Would it have anything to do with the bowling lanes that were down there? Or? because 2 or 3 of us kids got stopped one day by Skid Watson when we were walking by the YMCA, and he said, "Will you kids be interested in earning a nickel? We need someone to set up pins."
Growing up, being a member of the St. James congregation and attending Sunday school there, and as well as becoming an acolyte and then a server, one of the neatest things about being at that church, you kind of go down this stairway. You can go one way into this auditorium, but if you keep going into the basement, there are these insane passageways that go all the way around the church. And I'm talking big, heavy wooden doors. And the neatest thing was when, you're helping out and being a part of the church community, you'd have access as a kid. And some of the neatest memories I have is being allowed to go exploring.
We went through passageways, which were no way tunnels. They were built in order to accommodate their storage and accommodate their meeting rooms and such. But it did lead to their vault. And inside their vault, we were able to view 150-year-old Bibles, and the other things that people are storing underground are sometimes as interesting as these fabled tunnels. But we didn't want to miss the interesting parts of what was being recorded just because we're on the tunnel hunt. And sure enough, it's a tunnel. There's no question about it. It's a tunnel that goes from one building to another. But again, the purpose of it is very clear. It's to access the coach house from the house.
Exactly, yeah. And it shows up on the fire maps.
Does it, eh?
That tunnel. There are actually 3 tunnels that searching the maps, there's 3 tunnels that are actually drawn into the early maps.
It's unlikely to me that there was some nefarious or intentionally secretive purpose for them to be there.
No, it's there's nothing glamorous about as much as we hope to have some great stories and secret booze tunnels, and it was a practical thing mostly, and I really believe that.
Okay, so we're going to see what we've got here. Jail cell, somewhere behind this board. Hopefully nothing pops out, but we'll find it.
Grab the wand from Sydney there, X, and okay, we can switch lights. So we'll go into here. So we turn the wand on.
See all the writing on the ceiling and the walls from their cigarette lighters, right?
Oh wow, we gotta get that too. Okay, actually going in.
Date carved on the wall, let's see, 1940 something.
What do you see?
A ghost.
Oh,
Probably jumping the Halloween.
A ghost. A bed sheet.
The elevator shaft, the one group, when it came down to the basement, no other group had come down, so I brought them down. And when she was talking, hearing the voices, I couldn't believe it. Actually answering questions, but they didn't.
It smells kind of burnt in here, eh?
The actual proper right question, answering the question. And now
You guys ever had a meeting for you? Like an actual meeting?
one place that.
The bed of the jail cell. Yep. It's all cemented.
Just coming through the
Yep.
double doors, all of a sudden, it got cold and I just got, oh yeah, it was just really bad. One only that time.
Let's even
Another time our manager said.
Do you want to take a shot? So Sir Sam Steele was actually one of the first Mounties. He was born around Orillia, lived near Orillia. And in Orillia, we have the Sir Sam Steele building, which now houses the museum. At one point, it did, though, house Canadian Customs, the RCMP, Orillia Police. And in the basement of the Sir Sam Steele building are the original cells where they held the prisoners. So we, of course, had to go and check it out.
In 1986, when I opened one of my dojos downtown, we were putting a weight room in the basement, and we realized that there were tunnels that extended far beyond our own property lines. We decided to take a walk back through, and we could go all the way up to the drugstore on one side, and I'm not sure what the other businesses were on the other side. We also found schematic drawings and a lot of old electrical fixtures that indicated that at that point they had shopping malls in the underground of downtown Orillia. It was bricked in on both ends at a certain point, so we had perhaps 80 to 100 yards that we could walk one way or another under the main street of Orillia. As we went back into the back of the room, we found a really large metal door that was attached to a pulley system. So we tried to re-hook up the pulley system, but we couldn't. It had been cut and damaged, and I think the door may have actually been welded shut. But it was a pretty big steel door that we knew there must have been something behind it.
Is you've got hydro wire lines, you've got underground passageways for that, which any city that puts stuff underground has. You've got gas lines that had to be run underground.
that almost exclusively they're for a utilitarian purpose. There's some purpose for them being there, whether it be infrastructure, and depending on the era. I think what we have in Orillia is several different eras of tunnels, but the tunnels were used in their own eras for pretty much the same reason, to move people through and allow access to areas and to pipes and to electrical access. Where right from where we see the brick archways, which would probably be the very earliest tunnels, to the modern tunnels that we have out at the OPP Academy, which function exactly the same way. It's
Exactly, yeah.
they have access for people. They have access in order to get under a roadway to go somewhere else or to go from one building to another.
We're recording.
Hand him the camera.
Yeah, you might have to.
But there's no question that it was a grease pit.
Well, there's a lot of question about it, actually. There's a
Is
lot,
there?
yeah.
Well,
But I don't think those questions are well informed. I think, a lot of people, like, there's a whole newspaper article about how it could have connected to a whole network of things, and then you sent me a message after that. You say, well, there was an oil change place there before.
Yeah.
It's not. Of course, it's a grease pit.
I
right?
understand it was about 4 feet deep, so that would.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is put new infrastructure into the main street, and then basically new water main, new drainage, storm pipes, and water and sewer coming up Mississauga Street. They were all revamped because they were really old back in the 20s and 30s. 1981, 82, they did this. When we were digging up, they found the tunnels and everything else, and then we had no use for them, obviously, so they filled them all in. And they broke them down. There was some areas where there were bricks across, or bricked, and there was pillars holding up the, and boards holding up the thing, holding up the road, basically. And then they filled them in because obviously it was unsafe.
Do you guys see in the corner there? Like, it looks like you can, I didn't notice until the light was on, you can actually see right back through there. Go shine, yeah. It's there. It looks like it might be a door to a room.
Oh, you're talking about.
Yeah, those cracks, the fissures in the foundation there.
Yeah.
How far back does it go into an empty space?
Yeah, it's more rock back there, but you can see spaces sort of around them as well.
Okay.
So it could go back pretty far.
Yeah.
Can't really see too much though, because there's more rocks in there. I'm just wondering if they had something going across the top, and that this is just more filler to hold it back. Like I can see, yeah, a piece of wood here that strip goes down. I don't know. Let's see. I think this piece goes down. I don't know how far, but it's also holding back this top, which sounds hollow back there, right? Yeah, that's
Okay. Okay, go. Back out just a little bit. I'm not sure what the camera's capturing there, but. So it's stone for sure?
That's what it looks like to me.
What is that?
What is that?
Maybe, is that brick? Maybe it looks red.
Yeah, it could be brick. How far are you in there, X?
Let me just.
Whatever it was, you poked through it.
Can you drill deeper?
So I'm that far in. About just over 2 inches. Just over 2 inches in. We're 2 doors down from Peter Street Fine Arts, and this is another basement that has a similar access on the street facing side. Yeah, it's pretty much the same with the last place we were in. Fine Arts, except for instead of a wood door there, they've actually cemented that entranceway in.
Aeneas King apparently is responsible for bankrolling and building that block back circa 1870.
Yeah, I think the original building was a Fix general store, and they had a slaughterhouse behind it. They had access to it underground.
Several of the tips we received referred to tunnels under places like Carousel Collectibles, under the Opera House, and under even the mystery location that we were in. What they really turned out to be were coal rooms, where either they were storing coal or the partitions between the different coal areas had collapsed over time. When you opened up the wall, it appeared like a tunnel, but in fact it was an old storage area for coal.
About the 1870s, 1880s, Orillia became a dry town, mostly because with all the lumberjacks and navvies from the railroad coming in every spring and every Saturday in some cases, there was just absolute pandemonium. It was like Dodge City. So the town council, I have to watch how I put this, but perhaps a number of them being teetotalers, or at least publicly teetotalers, put the ban on the selling of booze in town. So that carried throughout, overlapping any of the national prohibitions that took place at any given time.
They didn't have to hide their beer because the business people in town, like, it was a dry town, but that was for the poor people and the ordinary workers. But if you were a business person, you belonged to the Legion, you belonged to the curling club, the Masons, and they all had their bars. And there was no prohibition for those guys.
As a romanticist, I am sure, to 5 foot before my grave, that they were used to run booze, and it was a bunch of crooks around here that in fact were beating up the town by sneaking out of the tunnels.
Why would you have a series of tunnels to run booze when you hear stories, verified stories, that if the town council wanted to drink, they would say, well, we're going to see the police chief, and his house was always fully stocked. Much more logical that there's a combination of things going on. This is just theory. Combination of things going on, that you've got the underground hydro wires that were done, and I'm not sure exactly when that was done.
Under 40 then.
And clearly tunnels had to be dug under the streets had to be dug up, and like any underground hydro system or water system or gas system, you had gas lighting in town. There had to be gas lines run underground, so there are any number of reasons why there could have been tunnels running from one end of town to another, and crossways as well.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, it's me.
What's going on, man?
Where are you?
About half hour out of town.
You gotta come back.
Why? What'd you get?
Bremen and I found something.
Like, you guys were going to, like, that pet store, right?
Yeah, Dave's Pets. We're actually in the basement right now.
Okay, so what'd you find?
Well, it's actually a tunnel.
Like what we found in Geneva or Carousel? Like, just like a access tunnel?
No, this is different. It's got like a brick archway, double brick, and I can't tell how far it goes back because there's a big pile of dirt in there, but it's definitely a tunnel.
Like, it looks old?
What's that?
It looks old?
It looks really old. Basically, Bremen and I were in the basement here. There's a huge metal door. Tried to open it, it wouldn't open, so we checked out the rest of the basement. I came back, and just before we left, I thought I'll give it one more try, so I yanked on it. The door screeched open, pitch black inside. So Bremen and I used our phone flashlights, and sure enough, there's a double brick arch, and it looks old. It looks like a really old tunnel.
It's intriguing because our ancestor used to do is try to hide from drinking publicly and everything else. So, and I think that was one of the ways to get across the road to carry the booze over there. And my understanding from what I'm talking to people before was that when the mayor at the time, they would have parties over at the Opera House, and that's how he would get the booze across without being arrested or noticed. That's true. The tunnels went across from Fred's Meat Market over to the Opera House, and basically what they did was transported alcohol from the liquor store that was there, and there used to be a bowling alley above on the second floor there, and they partied over at City Hall, and the booze was transferred over because Orillia was dry till 1967, and that's one of the things that they try to do is. I guess underground drinking was probably the best way to describe it.
I don't know when they were built or why, but with the spirit of Stephen Leacock breathing down my neck, I say they were built during Prohibition by gangsters to deliver booze to the law-abiding citizens of Mariposa.
None of the tunnels actually connect to a network, so there are questions about that. We come to an end of a tunnel that's bricked in. Why is it bricked in? Why is it not just filled in with dirt? Why is it not filled in with concrete? Someone's took the time to lay one brick at a time, you know. Go to another tunnel and same thing. Why is it? Where did that go? You know, was it concealing something or was it protecting something? You know, stopping someone from the other end to get in or stopping from getting out.
The biggest thing I've taken away from this project is that the questions just can't be answered, because the fact of the matter is most of the tunnels, or at least the most interesting tunnels that we've seen, aren't included on any historical record. They're not spoken about. So
there's just rumors.
There's just rumors until now, when we have uncovered and said, yeah, they're there. But we'll never know really why. It's always a point of it's a matter of speculation, and this movie, people are going to come away from it and they're going to still be asking questions.